Hello, bosses. This week I'm doing another solo episode where I reply to the questions of one of you that you sent into my email, Ella at authorlikeaboss. Just so you know, if you want to help make sure that the episodes come out regularly and consistently, because I'm doing this all by myself, a great way to do that is to support me on Patreon. So that way I can get some help. So I'm here for you guys, giving you some great content every week. You could do that at authorlikeaboss.com/Patreon, Patreon. In the meantime, I hope you really enjoyed this episode where I talk about marketing and the fun that it is and how to get over whatever resistance you have to marketing. Plus, you'll learn what marketing and my vacation last weekend have in common. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Author Like a Boss podcast, the podcast for indie authors who want to improve their writing, up-level their marketing, make money with their books, and have fun doing it. Now, on to the show with your host, Ella Barnard.
Hey bosses, hey everybody, Ella here, and I wanted to do another one of these kind of one-on-one, just me and you podcast episodes this week. And part of the reason for that is that last week, you may have noticed there wasn't an episode that came out, and that's because my husband and I went on our first vacation that we've been on, just the two of us, not going to visit family, family vacation, where you go to visit your family. We've done a few of those, but we haven't gone on one, just the two of us, to someplace fun since we got married 5 years ago. So I was like laser focused on that. I was like, we're going to have a good time. And what we did was we went to Zion National Park, which is gorgeous. And then after that, after we went through the park, we went to go see Aerosmith in Vegas because Aerosmith is my hubby's favorite band of all time, which you might not expect because we come from a really conservative area. He's very conservative. Like, you look at him and you think, that's a nice guy, but Aerosmith is his favorite band. And so we went to go see them before they all retired. Anyways, the reason why, I'm bringing up that vacation is because one of the things that we decided to do when we went to Zion National Park was to do the Angel's Landing hike. Okay, and this is relating to somewhat what I'm going to talk about later, because Angel's Landing is, if you guys, you should go look it up. It's gorgeous, but it's also some serious hike, like seriousness to it. So let me describe it a little bit. So Angel's Landing hike is 5.4 miles round trip. The elevation gain in that time, so for the first half is, you do 2.2 miles is the first half of the hike. And in that time you gain 1,500 feet, which is pretty high up. Like, you're definitely working your thighs on this hike. But it's pretty safe. You've got a pretty wide path for the first 2 miles. You've got a pretty good pathway. It's strenuous, but it's safe. But the part that I'm going to talk about with you right now is the last 500 feet, the last little bit, because you spend all this time kind of going up the side of a cliff, lots of switchbacks, or the side of the canyon, lots of switchbacks, but they have a pretty wide pathway, and there's like a strong, you're on the side of the canyon, so there's like a strong wall on one side of you the whole time, except for the last little bit. And last little bit, there's like a spine up to like a landing. They call it the Angel's Landing. It's like the spine in some places is like maybe 2.5 feet wide, and you have to go along the spine to get to the landing that the hike is named after, the Angel's Landing part. And on each side of the 2.5 feet wide is 1,000-foot drop. So they have some chains in some places, not in all the places, and there's always at least a drop, and it's a little bit sketchy. And so the reason I thought about this for you guys today is because doing a hike like this is not that different than doing something scary like starting to market your book. Okay, so I'm going to go into that a little bit because when I first started the hike, I was terrified, basically terrified out of my mind. Okay. I was like, okay. And I was going very, very slowly. I didn't feel like I needed to go very fast at all on that because I was putting every step very carefully. And what happened was that there was a number of people around me that were also pretty scared. And one girl was like, I can't believe you're doing this hike. You're so clumsy. Okay. And then they were already doing the hike. And so I was there and I'm like, I am not thinking, I actually said out loud, I'm like, nope. We're not talking about being clumsy. We're talking about being strong and stable and secure. Because even that talking about, even that feeling like there might be some reason that we might possibly fall was going to interfere with my ability to get through this hike. It was terrifying. And I was like, no. All of our mindsets should be stable, strong, and secure. And I had that going through my head the whole time because I was like, I'm doing this. I'm not going to be worrying. I'm not going to put into my mind anything that might even say that I might not complete this hike. The whole time I was just strong, stable, secure. And I'm slowly making sure that every step is on a nice, strong piece of rock. That my hand was really strongly gripped onto whatever I needed to grip onto so that I could make it to the end of this hike. And when I was starting, I was like, this isn't that different. I actually thought to myself, I'm like, this isn't that different than starting a business. You know, whether that business is my business, whether that business is you being an author. I was like, this isn't that different because there's something about doing something really scary that you get to be laser focused on just taking that next step, even if you don't know the results at the end, you haven't been there before, even if, you know, it's a little bit scary and maybe a little bit dangerous. Now with, you know, starting your business, there's not a physical danger like there was with this hike. Like you're not going to fall 1,000 feet to your death if you take a wrong step. But the principles of not looking at anything else but where you're going and not allowing yourself to think about anything else but your success or about what's safe, like just getting that mindset and being like, I'm doing this step by step until I get to where I want to be, are very, very similar. And in fact, after I completed the hike, my husband asked me, because he didn't do that part. He was like, doop, 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 which is probably smart of him. But after we completed the hike, he was like, how far down was it on the parts? Like, could you tell how far down it was? And I was like, I didn't even look. And I didn't look at anything but the rock ahead of me. And I was saying stable, strong, secure in my head the whole time. Because I was like, if I look off the side of this, if I look to see how far down it is, I'm not going to complete this. So I am not even taking my eye off the step in front of me. He's like, how far was it? I'm like, I don't know. I had to watch videos later to see what it is that I had done. I watched other people's GoPro YouTube videos. Okay. And that's the same thing that you can do when you are marketing your book. And so, oh man, you can tell I'm like a little bit worked up about it because it was such a little bit of a scary hike. But I wanted to thank you guys for your responses to last time's podcast episode, because that's kind of what inspired this one. Elizabeth Kryman sent me an email and she asked some more questions. And so I figured, because I had just done that hike, I've had that vacation, and I was like, you know what? I think this is pretty relevant. Let's just chat it out. So talking about taking your next step and being scared about starting your business, Elizabeth's questions were, what about marketing? Do you need to know about marketing before you finish your book? Or do you just write first and then deal with all the stress later? And so I'm sensing in this question some resistance to marketing. I think with the question of, do you write first and then deal with all the stress later? Okay. And a lot of that stress, I think, comes from a misunderstanding about what marketing is. Okay. So literally right now, the reason I started this podcast is because I have products that I want to market. I have products I want to market, and I want to meet other people in the industry, and I want to help you guys. But a big part of why I started the podcast is marketing. And not to be salesy or sleazy, marketing isn't trying to convince somebody to buy something that they don't actually need or want. Although a lot of it has looked like that when you're on the other side. You're like, do I really need eyelash curlers? When did eyebrow tattoos or pencils or whatever they are become a thing? When did this become such a big deal to have an eyebrow pencil? And because of a lot of marketing that they do, especially for women, I could go off a tangent here, you guys, but especially for women, marketing for women and beauty products is some corporation creates the problem in order to sell you the solution. So when I was a kid, hardly anybody was doing eyebrow pencils unless you actually did not have any eyebrows. Okay. And now eyebrow things are huge everywhere, and I have no idea what to do with them because somebody was like, oh, we need to make more money. So let's create the problem of your eyebrows aren't good enough and then sell you the solution of fixing your eyebrows. Okay. So then you get this kind of sleazy feeling because the marketing itself is telling you you're not good enough. I'll sell you the solution. And that's yucky marketing. And that's not what we're talking about here. I'm definitely not doing that for you guys. That's kind of marketing that I like to promote. It kind of feels yucky and gross. It doesn't have to be that way. In fact, the best marketing is word of mouth marketing. Word of mouth marketing is where you have a product that you really, really love, and then you share it with everybody because you're like, this is the best thing ever. You're like, you got to pizza and you really, really love the pizza. And you're like, this is the best pizza I've ever had. You're going to tell everybody about it just because you like it so much. And that telling everybody about it, that part of it is word of mouth marketing. So what you want to do is create a product that's really, really excellent that your people want. Obviously, if somebody doesn't eat pizza, it doesn't matter how good the pizza you tell them, you tell them the pizza is, they're not going to want to go buy it because they don't eat pizza. So it's a little bit about knowing who your market is, knowing who your people are, if you want to call that your tribe, and then being able to recommend to them something that they actually really want. So you have the best pizza ever, you find somebody who also loves pizza, and then you tell them, hey, go try this pizza. And that's marketing. That in itself is marketing. I remember when I first learned that, and I was like, oh, it doesn't have to be sleazy. It's actually about giving somebody what they want. Do you think the person who loves different kinds of pizzas wants to hear more recommendations about awesome and amazing pizzas they can get? Of course they do. They're like, yeah, I want to have the best pizza ever. If I haven't had it yet, I want to eat it soon. So there's no sleaziness involved. Okay. And in fact, because you're friends with that person and know them well enough to know what they want, it's a friendship and it's a help to them. It's not like I'm a stranger trying to convince you of something that you don't even want or need. You're actually friends with the person. You know them well enough to say, I know this guy really loves pizza. He's definitely going to want this recommendation. And that's the kind of marketing that you can have with your readers. Okay. You actually build a friendship with them because you're curious about them. You want to know them. You want to be friends with them. And you want to give them things that they like because you care about them, right? You're like, I care about these people. I want to give them things that they like because they're good people and they're my friends. Let's say you write shifter romances, okay? Your audience, they like to read shifter romances because those are the people. Those are your people. Your people will want to read what you write. So they read shifter romances, they love shifter romances, and they're constantly looking for more shifter romances. In that case, you are doing them a favor by making sure they know about your shifter romance. And when you tell them, hey, I've got a shifter romance, It's not sleazy. It's actually giving them what they want. If it wasn't your shifter romance that you recommended, if you recommended somebody else's shifter romance, it wouldn't feel bad at all, because you're like, well, I know they love them. Here's my person that I know that has an excellent shifter romance. I'm going to give that recommendation to them. And it just feels good to make a match. The part that's difficult is when it's your own stuff, because that's where the fear comes in. Okay. Marketing your own stuff can be really scary, especially when you first start out, because you have these questions in your mind. Will anybody respond? Will they like your stuff? And the big question that I think is underneath it all is, am I good enough? Right? That question that we have, am I good enough? Which is such a huge question, and the fear can shape so many things. And so when you first start marketing, it can be really scary, because you're doing it for yourself and you're not doing it for somebody else. And in that doing it for yourself, all these questions come up. So here are a few tools that I like to employ for getting into a good mindset before you start marketing, or as you're starting marketing. Okay. So the first thing is, instead of thinking of your book marketing as a big, overwhelming project that you will either succeed at or fail miserably at, I like to think of it in baby steps. Okay. So instead of being like, I'm marketing my book, so big, it's like trying to imagine cleaning your entire house. You're like, I can't, it's too much. Or reorganizing your entire house. You're like, it's too big a project. I can't even get started on it. Instead, think about it in baby steps. And I think I may have even used this example in the last episode with like the cleaning your desk. It's such a good example. Okay. Think of it in baby steps. And what that looks for marketing is engaging with one reader in your genre, or writing one review of a fellow author, or inviting one person to your newsletter. You don't have to think of marketing as a big project if you break it down into little teeny tiny projects. And you're like, okay, that's my marketing for the day. I did my one thing. Okay, that's the first thing I like to do. Second, I also like to imagine the worst case scenario of those baby steps. Okay, so let's say you post one post to your Facebook page and no one responds. What is the worst thing that happens? No one responds. Okay, that's it. That's the whole thing, is nobody responded. And how bad is that? How bad is that really? It's not that bad. The reason it feels so heavy is because it's like all of your dreams for yourself and your story are weighing on it. But it's actually not really life or death. And here's, like, you can put it into context and you say, okay, so I shared something on a Facebook page. Maybe Facebook pages aren't as effective as they used to be. People aren't seeing the posts. So it's not that nobody would have responded. It's just that nobody saw it. Or maybe you posted it at a time of day when not that many people are online. Or maybe you weren't posting it in the right place. Maybe you need to find a Facebook group or Instagram or somewhere else. Take a step back and think about all the times that you didn't respond to someone else's post. Was it personal, where you're like, I'm not responding to this because I don't want to support this person on their dreams? Of course not. Of course not. You were just like in your life doing whatever you were doing, and you didn't, for whatever reason, respond to that post. Maybe you didn't see the post. So when you come to that situation with the baby steps and you imagine that worst case scenario, then be like, is that really that bad? Think about it. And then go ahead and take more action. Tweak something and keep trying. You're like, so if it doesn't work on your Facebook page, go find a Facebook group and post. Maybe tweak something in the language of your post. Maybe ask questions or whatever. Okay, I have lots of tips about that, but that's not what this one is about. Okay, the third step that I like to employ for mindset is to remember that people are much kinder and more open to relationships than you think. Okay, people, especially if you're coming to it with real caring and wanting to build a relationship and offering a friendship, if you come to them like, what can I get from you? Then nobody likes that. But if you come to them like a human, as Russell Nolte would say, if you come to them and treat them like a fellow human and with respect and caring and genuineness, okay, most people are open to having that kind of engagement. Marketing, plus, here's the thing. Marketing gets much, 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 much easier once you have a person or two actually respond to it. Before you start marketing, you're like, who is going to care? I'm putting all this energy, or I'm going to put all this energy into the void and maybe not get any response. Like, why am I practicing this newsletter when nobody's even getting it? Once you get the first couple people who aren't your friends and family, it gets a lot easier because you're like, oh, someone does care. And you aren't sending it to nobody. You aren't sending your energy into the void. You're sending it to those few people who are your fans, and it makes it a lot easier. Speaking of fans and newsletters, Elizabeth asked, do you need a newsletter before you publish? The answer is, you may probably guess, yes. Yes, you need your newsletter. If you don't have a newsletter, start one right now. Your newsletter is the best way to build a relationship with your readers. And so her next question is, how do you start a readership for your newsletter? How do you gain subscribers? And here are my three tips for getting people to join your newsletter and getting readers and starting to build those relationships, finding people to build a relationship with, okay? The first tip is to join newsletter builders. Okay, there are people out there who are organizing what they call builders in order to find people in the genre and build their newsletter subscribers in that way. So what they typically do is everybody contributes some certain amount of money, and some of the builders are bigger than others, but it's somewhere usually between like $10 or up to $100. And what they do is that $10 goes to some prize. Like you guys have probably seen, like, hey, if you want a chance to win this amazing prize, like I just recently did a spring book box, and so it had like 20 different books in it. And so it was like, hey, if you want to win all these books, enter your email for a chance to win. And all the books were fantasy sci-fi related, so it was for the fantasy sci-fi genre. And so everybody who joined that was going to be obviously a sci-fi or fantasy reader, because it was all books. Got it? And so the person who's organizing the builder will organize and get all the books or whatever the prize is. And then they share it to everywhere and get new people to enter the giveaway. Like they want to win the prize, and they enter it with their email. And at the end of whatever time the person who's organizing, they pick a prize winner, give it to them, and then share that list with everybody who participated. And the people who signed up for a chance to win know that they're going to be receiving emails. Like, it's really GDP compliant as best you can. And like, they know that in response to signing up for this giveaway, they are going to be receiving newsletters from the people who participated in the giveaway. So a couple of places to participate in these builders are Dragon Realm Press. There's a Facebook group hosted by J.A. Cullican, and she does builders. I'm not sure exactly the genre. I think it's fantasy, maybe a little romance, paranormal. Go check. Russell Nolte, who I've interviewed a few times, he has a group, Authors and Creators Making Money Selling Books. And Russell does the more $100 builders, and usually they're around fantasy or sci-fi. But he gets lists of like 5,000 names, 5,000 email. So you get a really, really big response from his. It's afterwards, it's your job to retain people, which is a whole other topic, but it's very doable. And another place that you can find builders, and these ones are usually more romance related, is in Litring, Litring, with Melissa Storm. So you can join the builders at any time as long as you know your author name and you know what your newsletter name is going to be. You can join the builders anytime and start building that list. Oh my gosh, you guys, I don't normally talk for these for this long. I'm more of a curious question asker than I am a talker. I do like to talk, but it's a little bit different when it's just me nonstop into a microphone. Okay. Okay, the next way you can build a readership, Elizabeth, is by creating an opt-in. Okay, so usually you'll typically want to have a website with your opt-in, but you don't have to. You can create an opt-in and just have an automated email sequence that gives the people... Okay, wait. Opt-in. Opt-in means that they are opting into your newsletter in exchange for some kind of thing that you're giving them. Okay, and you can do that without having a website. You can do it with MailChimp, or somebody... They have a MailChimp. You'll make a form that's like, hey, do you want this opt-in? Do you want this thing? And they sign up, and then you set up an automated sequence on the back end that makes sure that person who signs up gets the thing, that they get the opt-in. But I do recommend having it on your website if you can. And some really good opt-ins that you can have, some good opt-ins that you can have are a short story or novella, deleted scenes from your book. If you don't have a whole book that you've already published, you can have an opt-in that includes the first 3 chapters of your book. You could do something creative like having a guide to the best books in your genre. Or if you want to be even more creative, you can just find something that you know your readers want or would find useful. So, dragon bookmarks or a coloring book, or, you made a homemade coloring book since those are so popular now, or whatever. I just talked to Melissa Storm, and she says with her current cozy mystery series, which she's writing as Molly Fitz, her opt-in is like pictures of her cats. Pictures of her pets, because she has dogs too. And she's like, it's surprising how many people are opting in, but people are really, really excited to get pictures of the pets. And then she gets a lot of response because she then sends them the automated email with the pictures of the pets, and people reply with pictures of their own pets, which I'm like, oh my gosh, that's genius. Because everybody loves their pets and they want to share about it. So an opt-in is a really good way to get people onto your newsletter and to create some relationship. Like obviously Melissa is building a relationship really quickly by sharing something that she loves, her pets, and responding to people when they send pictures of their pets to her. Okay, the third, and I think maybe the best way to get people to receive your newsletter is when someone asks you to let them know when your book comes out. Like if it comes up in conversation with anybody, anywhere. Like if you're just like at the coffee shop or talking to a distant cousin or whatever. And they're like, oh, you're writing? When does your book come out? Instead of getting quiet or shy or being like, oh, I'm not sure, like trying to be modest about it, sometime next year, just say the best way to find out when my book comes out is to sign up for my newsletter. I'll be announcing it to everyone when it comes out then. That way I don't have to try and remember. You'll just get a notification. That is the best way to invite people to sign up to your newsletter, is just saying, hey, want to be on it? When you're talking about your book. And that can happen in person. That can also happen on social media. If you're in groups that are talking about fantasy books and you're engaging with people who are fantasy book lovers, and you happen to talk about, they're like, oh man, what I really love about this book was that it had this strong female lead character, and and the dragons were really, really sexy, or whatever. I'm just coming up with stuff off the top of my head. But you're like, oh yeah, I have a book about that. You might be interested. Oh really? When does it come out? Well, if you want to find out, sign up to my newsletter. Super duper easy. Okay. The final question that Elizabeth Kryman had was, how do you deal with all the overwhelming administrative responsibilities? And I wasn't quite sure, Elizabeth, what you meant with that. Okay. I have a feeling it kind of goes with the marketing and mindset resistance, but I have more trouble keeping my laundry folded, like my clean laundry folded, than I do with the administrative responsibilities of being an author. There are I have more with the podcast than with other parts of it, but I'm like the administrative responsibilities. I mean, if you're talking about sending newsletters or managing your social media and things like that, you can always hire some help. Like you can get a virtual assistant or a personal assistant for even just a few hours a week to help you with that. Or a thing that a lot of people do before they hire somebody, maybe they can't afford to hire somebody yet, or maybe they're not exactly sure what to do if they were to hire somebody. One thing that you can do that a lot of people do very successfully is to batch your social media, like batch the creation of them and then schedule things. So you're like spend, Monday afternoon, I always spend 2 hours making all my graphics and then scheduling the posts to whatever social media places that you're in or on. And that way you don't have to think about it every day. You can just write and know that your social media is happening, even if you're not giving it your full attention. I do, however, recommend responding to people who are responding to your posts. So I would say batch things so you get all the yucky stuff, or what you consider yucky stuff, done at one time. Schedule it all at that same time. Then that leaves your brain free for the thing that you like to do so much, which is write. And then save the social media responses that you should do every day for after you've completed your writing. So that way your best creativity goes to your writing, and then you can just, respond with GIFs or like, yeah, or emojis or what have you to the people who are responding to your social media posts. So that doesn't take all that much energy. Okay, this was a little bit longer than I expected it to be. I hope it's useful. You guys, if you want to help me to be better about posting regularly and getting episodes up regularly, I'm creating some new projects that I'm working on really intensely right now. And so, I've only got so much energy for things. I'm really trying to prioritize like I'm walking a cliff and trying not to fall off the side, trying to get everything done, hoping that it works. I could really, if you want to help with, make sure that the podcast gets going and it continues to be consistent and effective. I have a Patreon where it would help me to cover some of the costs of hosting the podcast, because it does cost money to give it to you. And maybe my next dream amount, if we get enough people to sign up, is to have me make the episodes and then pay somebody to do the show notes and to put it up for me, because that way I can keep on giving you guys really, really great value without it taking so much of my time. Then I can keep giving you guys more stuff. I can do more episodes and not miss weeks when I have a really busy week. Okay. And you could do that if you go to authorlikeaboss.com/Patreon, Patreon. Okay. I think that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Hugs and happy authoring here at Author Like a Boss.
If you love the Author Like a Boss podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes. Until next time.